Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Eye on Icon. This is our second episode where we bring you the CPS proposal insights, the current projects that are in the proposal. They've moved off to the voting stage, and we have the Tempo team here and Brian Li along for this podcast to really help break down what the project that is currently being voted on is all about. Drew, how are you going?
Very well. Thanks for having me here. I'm a fan of the pod. So it's like, I have my own podcast, but it's still kind of weird, to be on a podcast that you listen to. So I'm excited for the opportunity.
We're beyond happy to have you on, and you know what? Just what you said, it would be. I haven't been invited to a podcast yet, apart from this one. I wait for the day.
Okay, bro, we might have to let me talk to Trevor, man. Real. Fez, it'd be great to have a combo with you.
Awesome, that would be great. Looking forward to it.
Yeah,
And Brian, how are
cool.
you going?
I'm doing well as well. I'm very excited to tell you guys more about this. So let's dive in.
Great, great. And as usual, iconographer, you well? He's along for the ride.
Yep, I'm here.
Excellent. So let's dive in. Okay, so first let's Drew, tell us how Tempo came about.
Yeah, my man, for sure. So, long story short, professional musician. I've been in most of the music space all of my life. Uh, and then all of a sudden, I had gotten to a point in my career where I was like, yo, I need to put myself out there. So I started making videos. And through these many years of making videos online, being a content creator, I ran into Brian. Brian and I became friends, and we ended up hanging out in the late summer of 2017. I went to go visit him. We went and we shot photography. We went for hikes, and we talked a lot. And he really put me onto crypto for the very first time. I only heard the word Bitcoin from like some of the guys I used to play League of Legends with in the computer science building in my undergraduate studies. But aside from that, it was the first time I heard it was in 2012 or so. And then here was Brian telling me, teaching me about blockchain, about the idea of cryptocurrency. And that kind of like made my ears prick up. I was like, okay, wait a minute. This is interesting. But I didn't know enough, and I had a lot on my plate being a recent graduate from a very expensive school. So I was hustling. I was doing a little bit of research on the side. I had thrown a couple of dollars in to the space around like November or so, and then the when the ICO crash at the very end of 2017 happened, I saw everything crash, and I just was like, okay, I'm gonna look away. I'm gonna keep looking a little bit, but I'm gonna look away. And then through this podcast, the Faking Notes podcast, I was always racking my brain about people I want to learn from, people I want to talk to, people I want to share with my audience. And then my boy Brian Li, with whom I'd spent summer in Japan uh, in 2018, he helped me shoot my first rap single. He helped me get around Japan, and we talked some more, and he updated me on what was going on in the crypto space in 2018, and he refreshed my mind about Ethereum. Uh, and and then fast forward back to 2020 when I'm thinking about podcast people that I want to share with my audience. I immediately thought of Brian Li and how knowledgeable he is, not only on the space and the infrastructure, but he had told me about Icon, and I wanted to hear more about Icon. So I brought him on the podcast. Trevor and I had recently, offhandedly, uh, been looking into crypto to prepare for our conversation with Brian, and we had a wonderful discussion. And at the very end of it, there was like this spark moment where we were like, wait, Trevor, I think we could do this for music. We should talk to. And again, uh, the little bit of knowledge that we dropped on our podcast was about the basics, smart contracts, blockchain, proof of work, uh, and so just the very basics, just for my audience. And in remembering smart contracts and the ability to build platforms, I was like, yo, we could build this. I was telling Brian after a podcast, we could build something like this on Ethereum. And he was like, Brian was like, yo, you do know I work with the Icon blockchain. What are
Ethereum.
you doing? What, Ethereum? What are you dumb? No, he didn't say that. But I was like, oh yeah, bro, help me out. So we've been meeting with Brian. He's been advising us, and all from that one podcast, uh, we have realized the value that NFTs are going to have in the artistic space, not just in the graphic arts, but I believe in the music arts. And that is what's got me so incredibly excited. So Brian really broke it down for me. You need to be he said you need to be a P rep on the Icon blockchain. You will be, if you really build a product and a platform on in this ecosystem, you can really not only help the ecosystem, but you can help all the artists that often don't or don't have the ability to make a workable living wage on their art. And that was really exciting for me as somebody who has lived his entire professional career as a freelancer and knows the sting of not being sure when you're gonna if you're gonna be able to pay next month's rent. So that's what's got me excited.
Okay, well, so then tell us. Okay, tell us the end state of the protocol, the product you want to bring out that is going to help the industry. Dare I say, revolutionize the industry. So I think that the audience out there wants to know the end product, end goal, end
Hmm.
vision. Yeah.
For sure. Well, what we're envisioning right now, because as you know, projects evolve. The first real problem that we're trying to solve for artists is the management of their metadata and the communication of that data in a place that is tamper proof. Oftentimes, in the traditional music industry, you have many different entities having to communicate with each other. That creates inefficiencies. Information is omitted or forgotten or misspelled, and then capital doesn't even make it the end artist. So what we're really trying to do um, is imagine a platform where artists can upload their music, tokenize it, and then automatically specify or not automatically, but specify the ownership splits among that IP and the associated metadata, so that maybe in the future other entities could come and use that metadata to dole out payments to the artist, but do it in a way that is tamper proof. And the idea was to make sure that we built it on Icon and created the platform to be very user friendly. I think many musicians have to already learn tons of complex tools already. When it comes to uploading their music, it should be simple.
Mm.
The creation of the art is the hardest part. So then having to also deal with the heavy machination of the modern record label, or put it out as an indie and then just kind of hope that people don't steal your music and profit off of it. It's kind of a wild west by comparison to what it could be. And I think this could really add a lot of value by building a platform that people can upload their music, tokenize that music, make sure that all the ownership is already understood, so we know where capital is going to be allocated, and then have the associated metadata that is important for the facilitation of those payments. Uh,
Mm.
yeah.
So if I were to put it this way, and correct
Hmm.
me if I'm wrong. So
Please.
the NFT essentially format enables that splitting off royalties, etc. So you got your musician, they come to your platform, they've created the content, quite simply able to upload, say, their latest album that turns into NFT format, which then the platform will users will be able to purchase. Is that also one of the core components of it?
We're looking at different we're looking at a lot of different angles that we're trying to go. Like, there is a marketplace platform for musicians called Bandcamp that already exists,
Mm.
and we think that's going to be an essential aspect of it, but I don't think that's going to be the main pull. I think we have other things that we're trying to build, like a DAO fund.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be the Coda Creators Fund, where people where Coda token holders can choose which products that they want to fund, and then artists that would have no capital to get a production started now have access to capital to create their art. And it would be a community driven platform in that way.
Oh, that's actually so you're up and coming, someone who is wants to become, an expert in their fields. They could come to this platform essentially with their song or their creation and put it up and into, towards the DAO, going, guys, I want to kickstart my career. Here's some of the samples, things I've created, and the everyday person who owns, part of tokens that give governance rights to the DAO would be able to vote on whether we fund the artist and essentially get the artist going.
Yes, indeed.
That
Yes,
is great.
indeed. And I think this is really fun. It's a fun gamification of this, fan process, right?
Mm.
Like, it's often hard, if you're a fan of somebody, to find an adequate way to, like, help them out, especially if they're in the beginning of their career. But if you could literally say, I funded this artist's album and he just won a Grammy. It's like, I did it 10 years ago. I funded his first album and now he's winning a Grammy. Like, that sort of story and connection that you have with your fans, and being able to provide a platform that also aids the artist in really having a foolproof record of their creation, is like a synergy that I think is really interesting and could bring about massive change, not just in the crypto space, but in the macro music market in general.
So I've got a question and maybe a potential scenario. So, kind of spinning off what Fez was just talking about, could it be a scenario where, someone provides that initial kind of capital that this, usually they'd go to a record company, would kind of provide that initial capital, kind of get things going, get the infrastructure up, get the recording, everything like that. If instead, a group, if basically the community did, of say it's 100 people, they pitch together in order to kind of kickstart this career, and in exchange, maybe they get a slice of the NFT royalties and things like that. And so, rather than, if they do win that Grammy one day, rather than some already rich record label executive owning all the rights and getting all the revenue, or not all of it, but most of it, instead it would go to the, primarily to the artist, but a lot of the revenue split would potentially go to the community that backed them from the get-go. Is that potentially how it could work?
For sure.
Yeah, I think I can chime in a bit here as well. Yeah. So that's like definitely something that we're looking into and that's really, like, the way that you phrased it there is a great way to put it, because you're right. Like, the kind of percentage breakdown right now in the traditional world is most of the capital is actually going back to the people at the top,
Right.
Which, if you think about it, just, technically does not make sense sometimes, because if the people making it are the ones making it, it almost seems like they should be the ones who should get the most of the share, right? So
a lot of times they're in debt to the recording,
right?
Or the
Yeah, you have an
watch.
advance. Yeah,
there's a documentary they follow around the 30 Seconds to Mars, because they owe, it's a legal battle where 30 Seconds to Mars owed, even though they were producing all this content and everything like that, because there was an advance, they had to, work 6 or 7 albums or something like that in order before they were actually free from the obligation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my
And they
god.
can't even own anything that they make while they're under that label in a lot of these cases. So you can't even be an artist. And that's why the Prince changed his name to the artist formerly known as Prince, so he could get out of some contracts and actually make music and have his own ownership of it.
Oh
It's
wow.
crazy.
Well, even Taylor Swift had to buy back her
Mm.
masters on from some of her original art, or her original catalog too. And I think that's another example of that.
I was actually
Exactly.
listening to a podcast yesterday with the musician who's dived into this space, and he made this comment that 88%, almost 88% of the musician's revenue goes to everyone else in the current system, the way that is set up. So I thought it was a very eye-opening metric to call out, and this is why this I kind of really love this idea, because what DeFi is doing to finance, and cutting out all the middlemen and just making no intermediaries, one user to the other, is essentially what you are trying to build for the music world.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
we want.
yeah. So it's
Go ahead.
yeah, so like the problem is not a lack of capital. There's plenty of capital that flows around, right? But the real problem is the distribution of that. So I really think this is a problem that should be solved, because the distribution of the capital right now is kind of an effect of all of the gatekeepers that have been put in place. So as we'll talk later more about the technical side of things, perhaps by kind of putting all of that gatekeeping stuff, taking it away and replacing parts of it with a contract on the blockchain, it's really powerful. And we'll have some more examples of exactly how that would work. We talk about what we've done so far, but just as a general concept, the music industry is extremely just rife with gatekeepers all over the place, between the creator and eventually the person who's going to consume it. There's so many different people in between, not people, there's so many companies in between that just take a cut here, take a cut here, take a cut here, and yeah, by the end of the process, the person who actually made it, they might take home 10%, 15% of the whole thing. So that's completely messed up, and I really think that it needs to be changed.
Yep. No, that's good. So then let's carry on that point. So what stage, where are we at with this project? What's kind of discovery have you done, and what have you identified the first phase you want to get through?
Sure. Yeah. So I can expand on this a bit. So the really core features that we're looking at for the first version of the platform is a few things. So there's the tokenization of the rights. The second thing is there's going to be a smart contract that we create to handle payments to the people who hold those tokens directly. So I like to think of it as streaming the capital to the people who hold the rights. And in order to showcase that, we'll be building a marketplace. So the marketplace is not the main product. The main product is kind of the stuff that's under it, because it's kind of hard to go to someone and be like, hey, we'll help you tokenize your song on the blockchain. But if we say oh, check out this marketplace where you can upload your songs and you'll get paid faster than if you upload it to Bandcamp, and the fees will be less. So if we pitch it like that, there's a higher chance that people will actually upload their songs, because they're seeing a more tangible thing that they can actually use. So there's those three things: the marketplace, the tokenization, and the smart contract. And the fourth big core feature is, like Drew said, the DAO fund. So just breaking down what we've already done. We've been researching stuff for about, I would say, a month and a half now. And the most important thing that we really need to do is to nail down a token standard that we can use to represent the publishing rights of the song. So on Icon right now, there's IRC3, which is the NFT. There's the IRC16, which is the STO. Initially, we were looking at those, but the IRC3 token, which is the NFT, I believe, is not like you can't divide it up. So, which is a problem for us, right? Because if there's 5 people and we need to do like a 20% split for each person, there's no way to split up that token in order to send it to all 5 people. But there were also other aspects of the IRC3 token that we liked. So we also looked at IRC16, which is the STO standard. So that allows you to split, of course, because that's the purpose of it. But there were some things about it that we didn't like, and there were some things about IRC3 which we did like. And then we stumbled upon IRC31, which seemingly like no one knows about at this moment. It hasn't really been used in the public that much. I actually don't know if it's been used at all, but it's a token standard called the multi-token standard. So it essentially allows for a single contract to be deployed, and then under that, you can issue many kinds of different tokens with your own specs. So like, I think just saying that, you can kind of get an idea of how we could potentially use it. So, we have one contract, and then under that, we can issue a token that represents each song. And since we have the flexibility to mint the max supply, we can set that to 100 or something. And then if someone wanted 50% split, then 50% of those tokens go to somewhere else. So this is a really powerful standard that if it did not exist, we might have to, make something custom, but we were really glad to find that this exists. So I actually have a meeting with Andrew Burns this weekend, the developer on Rhizome, and we're going to start designing a prototype token that is going to essentially tokenize a song. So that's been like the tokenization story so far. Did you have any questions about that?
So, it's funny you mentioned this 31. I've actually been digging because I've been delving into the NFT world and obviously researching in ETH. And ETH has similar, they have 2 NFT standards. One is completely non-fungible, the one token, but the other one is an NFT standard that essentially allows you to split what you've just described. But the metadata and royalties and everything comes back to that initial token, It's still considered, though, a non-fungible token because those splits cannot be divvied up into any, it's still a whole token per se. So I actually came across this on Icon, and everyone kept sending me GitHub links, and I'm not technical, so I looked at these links and it was all gibberish in there. So I'd actually reached out to Andrew. I'm like, Andrew, does this make sense to you? Because it's not making sense to me. And he even laughed and he said, yes, it does. You need someone to decipher it. And, I've actually gone to the dev community and gone, is there anyone keen to work through some of this and put documentations together and put it through as a CPS proposal, because it will help. But I sidetrack. That's great. You found it and you're digging into that standard, which should help the greater ecosystem as well once you start building.
Yeah, it got released in December, I think, so it's still a bit relatively new, and I think it didn't pop out as much as people as maybe some of the other ones did. But I know a few other. There's a couple other projects that I know it's been a really helpful development on too. So it's a nice progress to see.
So one thing I just wanted to pause as well, just for everyone listening, because it can get a bit technical, and I like to reference ETH as well, because a lot of stuff obviously spearheaded on that chain, and then the other chains say catch up or learn from it and put things together. What we're essentially referencing is Icon building out its NFT, variations, and this project will essentially use these new standards. And once someone starts creating on a chain, then other teams will build not necessarily similar products, but variations and new use cases. So this is kind of like a pioneering aspect for the Icon chain as well, which is great to hear. Okay. Anything else, Drew, or anyone wants to add iconograph? Any questions around this?
I am still learning. That's why I listen to this podcast. That's why I read Brian's really informative blog, and I pay attention to what you guys put on Twitter. You guys give a lot of valuable advice, but when it comes to programming and technical stuff, I'm an artist. Okay, like that is not my my bag.
No.
I wanted to make one more point, if you guys don't mind. So the main problem with the traditional world right now, with regard to like the speed of payments, like a lot of the issues that has to do with that is because a lot of it is still done on paper, and even if some of the processes are on a computer, sometimes there's no like link between different systems. So the act of tokenizing a song onto the blockchain is like not just for fun. It's like, I guess it's cool to say, but we're not doing it just for fun, because what it allows for actually is for smart contracts to be able to consume the state of the ownership, and then make things based on that. So by tokenizing the song, we can have a payment smart contract that can understand and parse the exact split and then disperse the funds very quickly. So the tokenization aspect is really crucial. I think a lot of projects that are working in the music space are doing things that are not really like important, or they're trying to tackle like streaming. They're trying to make a new streaming platform, and I have to ask for what reason. But we're actually starting from the opposite side, which I believe is actually where the root of the issue is. So I just wanted to say that as well.
No, that's a great call out. So the next piece, I think you've touched on it a little bit, but the token. So can I quiz you a little bit about what the tokenomics or what the token's going to be about? A little bit about maybe even let's talk about the snapshot that's been taken and how that's going to work.
Yeah.
Yeah,
sure. Did you have any specific questions, or should I just give like an outline about it?
Give an outline. Then I'll then I'll get picky.
Scam. ICO. Okay. Let me get my thoughts together here. Okay, so when we were first talking about this platform, we were coming at it assuming that the Tempo team would be in control of the platform, and it kind of got to the point where we were kind of questioning whether that was the right way to go about it, because we felt like if we're trying to actually decentralize the world here, it's like, would it actually make sense for us to retain control of how the platform works? So that was kind of ironic in a way, I guess. Yeah. So we were thinking more about it, and it's like, how do we offset the power away from us to different people? And the idea of a token came up, because there are aspects of the platform like a fund, right? So if there was no token, it would be more difficult to decentralize control of that fund, or it would almost maybe be pointless if it was just the Tempo team who could choose where the fund goes, because then like kind of what's the point? So we were thinking about how to do this, and then I think the idea of a token really made sense. So because there's certain features of the platform, the fund being one of them. Another thing that I've kind of been thinking about lately is, how do we handle disputes on the platform? So if someone says, oh, this person just uploaded a song that's actually not theirs, it's like, how can we have a system to handle that doesn't rely strictly on the Tempo team? So there's all of these different aspects of the platform that would benefit from a decentralized party of people who would be able to essentially vote. And the problem there is like, yeah, people can always vote, but their vote might be different if something at stake, you know, like if they have some funds at stake that influences them to vote in the right way. That's a very powerful mechanism for the growth of the platform. So that's kind of the idea why we decided to have a token. It's not because, you know, I feel like some tokens out there is like just exist to exist. We feel like there's actually a utility to the token here, and we're also thinking of different ways to incentivize actions on the platform with the token. So those are like 3 or 4 things that that we were trying to tackle with the introduction of a platform token.
Well, I think the idea platform governance token, if it actually gives the owner some control over decisions that need to be made of the platform, that itself is valuable, because then you've got, you know, you're not going to have your hoarders that hold these tokens. Eventually it's going to end up in the hands of people who, one, use the platform, and two, want to share a part of its growth, etc. So it's the right direction. Really love it, and thanks for that overview.
Yeah.
Cool. So I had a cheeky question in here. So have you got some artists? You know, I know we're very early in the project. I do understand that. However, obviously, when you've been thinking of this, you probably have some artists that you know you could onboard. Would you like to give us a little bit of some ideas on who could potentially be interested in joining and, you know, using the platform?
Well, that's such a great question. And yes, I have literally thrown some very vague, not shady, but hazy, suggestions towards some friends of mine. And in the music industry, one of them is a one half of a Grammy-nominated violin duo. Or I'm not going to really say much more than that, because I really, the way I like to do business and the way that I like to build platforms and build things is I build it on the work. When we have a platform, when we have an alpha, that's when I'm really coming to some of my friends who are some of the up and coming artists in many different genres. I have a friend, many of them have been on my podcast. I'm going to be asking a friend of mine named Bad Snacks. I don't know if you guys know about her, but she is an electronic and like hip hop producer. But she plays violin, she plays bass, she makes incredible music. Dear Evergreen has been another guest. Internet Boyfriend has been a guest. I'm going to talk to my friend who is D Sharp about this. The thing is, and I think this is really important, this is a discussion that Brian and I have had multiple times, is that the blockchain must be in the back end view. Because as soon as you say blockchain, as soon as you say crypto, as soon as you say certain words, it really lends people, especially people who are focused mostly on the arts, to kind of be skeptical. And if we have a platform that works, a website that works, I think that's going to do way more of the job for us than any elaborate marketing pitch. And I really believe in creating products of substance. And that's where I'm spending most of my energy, rather than going out and directly asking my friends, hey, will you upload it to the blockchain for me, bro? You know?
No, that's a really great point, Drew. And I forgot to mention that as well. And it's one of the reasons why I think building on Icon is such a great thing. You know, like we're trying to abstract away blockchain as much as possible. So there's things like Bridge, which will allow us to handle the identity part without people having to like log in through some weird extension. They have to have their own like Icon address. They have to fund their wallet. You know, there's none of that. So by using something like Bridge, it really streamlines the onboarding process a bit, and also I really like what Balanced is doing as well with the ability to take out loans into a stable coin, just because that's something that I've been thinking about, like how to handle the DAO fund. Like I don't want to denominate it in our own token. I don't want to denominate it in the Icon token because it'll be very confusing for the people on the platform. You know, they're like, "What is ICX? And why does the price keep going up?" You know, so uh, if
It only goes up.
right, it only goes up, or it can go down sometimes, I guess. But um, yeah, but I was really thinking like, how could we make even something like the fund into something more stable, at least from the currency that it displays as. So I was like, oh, it'd be cool if the fund was actually a balanced loan or something like that. So that's like not finalized, but it's just like things that we're thinking of to abstract away concepts of blockchain, to abstract like the price movement up and down as much as possible. So we really want to create a platform that people really don't know it's powered by the blockchain.
Yep, I love that, and yeah, it's more about creating this experience for a musician to be able to get into the industry and market themselves, and at the same time, with all the effort and hard work they put in, actually seeing the revenue in their pockets, and putting it quite simply, and at the yeah, so I feel that that's great. It's another angle that blockchain can reduce all the third parties and bring it right down to the source. And this is it. The music industry is due for a revolution. It's gone on long enough.
Yes, indeed.
I think intellectual property has been such a big part of this story and the ownership of publishing rights. And when you create a system where people can definitively feel and prove that they own the art that they've created, and be able to point to the other people who assisted, instead of backroom deals where you're writing things down on a piece of paper on a split sheet, shaking hands, sending text messages. No, it's on the blockchain. It's searchable. You know, and that just the idea of that, and having the ownership and not having to go through the long, expensive, by contrast, copywriting process. Like, it could really add a lot more time and money just by reducing the investment of having ownership over your property, you know, your ideas and your music.
Icongrapher, any final thoughts from your side?
No, I mean you've seen so much about NFTs lately, and they all most of the news seems to revolve around what crazy price just got paid for or something like that. And so it was certainly refreshing to hear a bit more. I guess a bigger picture, but a bit more of a vision behind it. And I'm not discounting one type of art over another, but I think in terms of the actual practical use case, if this gets built out kind of the way you guys have your vision, and if there's enough traction behind it, it really could be a really handy tool for people to have, and to really give back power and revenue and everything like that back to the actual artists and the creators. So I think that's really inspiring from that standpoint.
Thank you.
And I do want to give Drew a chance. You mentioned your podcast, but I figured if you just want to give a 20-second kind of 20-second promotion of it, just so I imagine people might want to listen. So just a sense of kind of what you guys talk about and what it is.
Thank you so much, Icongrapher. I appreciate you, man. So my podcast is called Faking Notes Podcast. It is hosted by myself and my Juilliard friend and colleague Trevor Bumgarner. We're both alumni of the Juilliard School, but we quickly after graduation became disillusioned by the idea of having a music career and obtaining and building a career where you're financially stable, because all we're really told is in the traditional roots is to go work in an orchestra, go be a movie composer, go do this. But we feel that there are way more avenues through the lens of artist entrepreneurship. So on our podcast, we have fun conversations about entrepreneurship. In the music space, we interview tons of people from many different places. We had Brian on the podcast. We have my producer friend, have YouTube stars, and we really get to the gems of how you build, not only just from a material aspect of a good career, but how do you have like also good mindsets and enjoy the ride as you're on your journey. So that's kind of like what we do.
So geared towards musicians, but it sounds like it can so pretty much anyone can get value from it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And we're value driven.
Very cool.
Thank you.
We'll be sure to include a link in that in our show notes for this podcast as well.
Thank you very much.
Definitely. Well, look, Brian, Drew, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for really breaking it down and talking through the vision of the project. I love what y'all are trying to do. And you know, one thing I do always reference this a little bit, but it's just the fact of the matter. You know, a lot of stuff gets started on ETH, and it's great to see that we can take a little bit from there and go, okay, what was hype versus what was actually practical and doable, and we can incorporate it into our bills. So we may be a little bit behind on the Icon chain, but that's a good thing, you know. Well, I get called out. It's not necessarily mistakes, but it's more seeing what has transpired and then making improvements. You know, it's the way of working, agile way of doing things. So really keen, excited what y'all are doing over here on the Icon blockchain for the music industry, and thank you so much for coming onto the podcast and talking about it.
Thanks for having us. Really
great.
Appreciate it.
Great, excellent. Thanks all. Iconographer. Until next time.
Take it easy. Thanks, guys.